Every trade has two prices: the money price, what you risk in dollars, and the time price, what you risk in opportunity cost, attention, and the mathematical deterioration of your edge. Most traders obsess over the money price and completely ignore the time price. They'll risk 1% of their capital, but they'll burn 20 hours of prime trading time on mediocre setups. And here's what they don't understand. Time price compounds in reverse. The more trades you take, the more expensive each trade becomes in terms of the wealth you're not building. But when you wait longer, when you become ruthless about time price, every trade becomes cheaper and more profitable simultaneously. The equation flips. Time becomes your richness generator instead of your wealth destroyer. This is how slow traders get rich while fast traders stay broke. You've been operating under a deeply flawed assumption that more activity equals more opportunity equals more profit. So you're constantly looking for trades, constantly active, constantly busy. You're scanning charts every day, sometimes multiple times per day. You're in and out of positions. You're always doing something, and you're exhausted. Your returns are mediocre despite all this effort, despite all this time invested, despite all this activity. Meanwhile, you see other traders who seem to barely trade at all, who wait for what feels like forever between positions, who might take one trade a week or one trade every 2 weeks. And somehow, they're building wealth faster than you. It makes no sense. It violates everything you believe about success, requiring effort and action. But here's what's actually happening. You've confused activity with productivity. You think trading more frequently gives you more chances to profit. But what it actually does is force you into suboptimal trades. It increases your transaction costs, both visible and invisible. It deteriorates your edge by diluting high-quality setups with medium and low-quality setups. It burns your attention, which is your most valuable and limited resource, and it creates emotional exhaustion that compounds into worse and worse decisions as time goes on. You're not maximizing opportunity, you're destroying it through overparticipation. Waiting longer makes you richer faster because of 3 compounding mechanisms that most traders never understand. First, the selection effect multiplier. Longer waits create exponentially stronger trade quality through statistical filtering. Second, error elimination. Waiting removes forced errors that silently destroy returns. And third, attention compound interest, the cognitive energy you save by trading less compounds into better execution on the trades you actually take. This isn't patience as virtue. This isn't about being a good person or having discipline. This is patience as mathematical advantage, as a mechanism that generates wealth faster than activity does. Every other approach tells you to be patient or trade less as behavioral advice, as something you should do because it's the right thing. This approach reveals the actual mathematical and psychological mechanisms that make waiting profitable. You'll understand exactly why waiting creates wealth, not just that it does. And that understanding transforms waiting from a sacrifice you make into an investment you're excited to capitalize on. You'll stop feeling like you're missing out when you're not trading. You'll discover that the empty spaces between trades aren't wasted time. They're the most profitable part of your process. You'll finally have permission to slow down without feeling lazy, to wait without feeling passive, to do less while achieving more. Let me give you a story that makes this clear. I want you to imagine 2 fishmongers who set up shops on the same street in a small coastal town. Both of them sell fish that are caught fresh daily from the same ocean. Both have the same overhead costs, same rent, same equipment. Both are hardworking. Both are knowledgeable about fish. Everything about their situation is essentially identical, except for how they approach their business. The first fishmonger opens his shop at dawn and stays open all day long until evening. Every morning he goes down to the docks when the fishing boats come in and he buys fish. He buys every decent fish that comes off those boats, cod, mackerel, flounder, whatever is available that day. If it's reasonably fresh and reasonably good, he buys it. His philosophy is simple. The more fish I have, the more sales I can make. Customers come in throughout the day and there's always something available, always something to buy. His shop is full. His display cases are packed. He's busy all day long making sales, small margins on each fish, because he bought whatever was available, not necessarily the absolute best, but he sells in volume. Lots of transactions, lots of activity. At the end of the month, after he pays all his costs, the cost of buying all that fish, the cost of the ice to keep it fresh, the cost of the time spent selling, he makes a modest profit, enough to pay his bills, enough to survive, but never enough to really build wealth, never enough to expand or transform his life. The second fishmonger has a completely different approach. He doesn't buy every fish. In fact, most mornings he doesn't buy any fish at all. Every morning he goes down to the docks and he looks. He's examining the catches. He's looking for something specific. He's looking for premium fish, the rare catches, the exceptional specimens, the fish that are so fresh, so perfectly handled, so beautiful that they stand out. And most mornings, he doesn't find what he's looking for, so he doesn't buy anything. He goes back to his shop and he doesn't open. His shop is closed. Some days, multiple days in a row, his shop is closed because he has nothing worth selling. But when he finds what he's looking for, when that premium catch comes in, when he sees the fish that meets his standards, he buys it. He brings it to his shop and he sells it for 10 times the price that the first fishmonger charges. And customers know this. They know that if his shop is open, whatever he has is extraordinary, worth waiting for, worth paying premium prices for. They don't come every day because they know he's not open every day, but when he is open, they come. And they pay gladly because they know what they're getting is special. His costs are a fraction of what the first fishmonger pays because he buys so much less. His time investment is minimal. Most days he's done by noon. He spends his afternoons reading, walking on the beach, spending time with his family. At the end of the month, his profit is 5 times higher than the first fishmonger, despite selling 1/10 the volume, 1/10 the transactions, 5 times the profit. Now the first fishmonger looks at the second fishmonger and he thinks he's lazy. He's barely working. He's closed most of the time. He's missing opportunities every single day. All those fish he doesn't buy, those are lost sales. Those are customers he could have served. He's leaving money on the table. But he's completely missing the mechanism. The second fishmonger isn't missing opportunities. He's creating them. By waiting longer, by being ruthlessly selective, he's transformed his business from commodity trading to premium trading. He's not selling fish. He's selling exceptional fish. And the waiting itself, the selectivity itself, is what makes each sale more profitable. The waiting creates the scarcity that justifies the premium price. The waiting ensures that when he does buy, he's buying the absolute best. The waiting means his costs are low, so his margins are high. The waiting means he's never exhausted, never depleting his judgment through constant transactions, always fresh and sharp when he does engage. The waiting is the business model. It's not a constraint, it's the advantage. In trading, most traders are the first fishmonger. They trade every decent setup. They're always looking, always in the market or about to be in the market, always active, always busy. They're making lots of transactions, and their returns are mediocre because they're trading commodity setups for commodity returns. They're taking every setup that qualifies, which means they're taking a lot of mediocre setups mixed in with the good ones. And those mediocre setups dilute their overall returns down to average. The wealthy traders are the second fishmonger. They wait. Most of the time they're doing nothing. Most days they don't trade at all. Some weeks they might not trade, but when they act, when they finally decide this is it, this is worth my capital and my attention, They're executing premium setups that deliver outsized returns. And the waiting is what creates the premium. The waiting is what ensures that every trade they take is exceptional. The waiting is the edge. Let me give you another way to see this because I think this is really important. I want you to imagine you have a bank account. But this bank account doesn't hold money. It holds attention units. This is a metaphor, but it's based on real cognitive science. Every day you wake up and your brain deposits 100 attention units into your account. That's your cognitive energy for the day. Your ability to focus, to make good decisions, to execute clearly, to manage your emotions, to process information. 100 units. Every trade you take costs attention units. And it's not just during the trade, it's before, during, and after. Scanning for the setup costs attention units. You're looking at charts, you're analyzing patterns, you're trying to identify opportunities. That's energy, that's cognitive load. Monitoring the developing setup costs units. Watching it form, deciding when to enter. That's attention. Entering the trade costs units, managing the trade while you're in it costs units. You're watching price action. You're managing your emotions as it moves for and against you. You're making micro decisions about whether to exit early or hold longer. And then processing the outcome costs units. Whether you won or lost, you're emotionally processing what happened. You're updating your beliefs. You're either celebrating or dealing with disappointment. A typical trade, from the moment you start looking for it to the moment you've fully processed its outcome, might cost you 15 attention units. Maybe more if it's emotionally charged. Maybe less if it's very routine. But let's say 15 as an average. Now, if you take 7 trades in a day, you've spent 105 attention units. But you only had 100. You've gone into attention deficit. You're operating on borrowed cognitive energy, and just like financial deficit, you pay interest on that borrowing. The interest is decision fatigue, emotional reactivity, deteriorating judgment. Your last trade of the day is being made with attention you don't have, with cognitive energy you've already spent. And that trade is almost certainly worse quality than your first trade of the day. You've experienced this. Your first trade of the day, you're sharp, you're clear, you're following your rules easily. Your 7th trade of the day, you're fuzzy, you're making excuses, you're rationalizing entries that don't quite meet your criteria. You're either overly cautious from exhaustion or recklessly aggressive trying to force a win. The quality has degraded. Not because you're a bad trader, because you've depleted your attention units. But here's what's interesting, and this is where waiting becomes powerful. Attention units don't just accumulate if you don't spend them. They compound. If you take one trade and spend 15 units, you have 85 left. And those 85 that you didn't spend, they don't just sit there. They earn interest. They compound into better rest that night, better recovery, better pattern recognition tomorrow, sharper decision-making. The attention you didn't spend today makes tomorrow's attention more valuable, more effective, more powerful. Over a week, the trader who's making 35 trades, 5 trades a day for 7 days, has been in constant attention deficit. They've been paying interest daily. Their decision quality is degrading progressively over the week. By Friday, they're making decisions with deeply depleted cognitive resources. The trader who's making 5 trades total for the week, 1 trade per day, or maybe 2 trades on 2 days and 3 days off, has been compounding attention surplus. They've been improving their decision quality progressively. Each trade is made with full cognitive resources, peak attention, peak execution, same edge on paper, same strategy, same setups, completely different edge in practice because attention either compounds or depletes. And which one happens depends entirely on how frequently you trade. The more frequently you trade, the more you deplete. The less frequently you trade, the more you compound. And compounding attention creates compounding returns because better decisions generate better outcomes, which create positive emotional states which improve future decisions. While depleting attention creates depleting returns because worse decisions generate worse outcomes, which create negative emotional states which degrade future decisions. Over weeks and months, these two paths diverge dramatically. The frequent trader is on a degrading spiral. The selective trader is on a compounding spiral. And this has nothing to do with strategy or technical analysis or market knowledge. It has everything to do with the mathematics of attention as a limited resource that either compounds or depletes based on how you use it. So, if waiting creates these mathematical and psychological advantages, what are the specific mechanisms? How does this actually work in your trading? Let me break this down because understanding the mechanisms is what makes this actionable. The first mechanism is what I call the selection effect multiplier. In statistics, there's a phenomenon called selection effect. It means that the process of selecting changes the properties of what you're selecting. This is really important. If you randomly grab 100 apples from a bin at the grocery store, you get average apples. Some good, some bad, most mediocre. That's what random selection gives you, the average of the distribution. But if you inspect 1,000 apples and you select only the best 10, those 10 aren't just better than the random 100. They're exponentially better because you've applied a high filter. You've looked at 10 times as many options and chosen only the top 1%. Those apples are going to be dramatically superior to what random selection would give you. In trading, wait time functions as a selection filter. When you take every setup that barely qualifies, when your threshold is low, when you're trading frequently, you're essentially grabbing from the bin of all available opportunities. And most of those opportunities are mediocre. Some will be good, some will be bad. Most will be mediocre. That's the nature of distributions. But when you wait longer, when you only take setups that exceed a high threshold, when you're ruthlessly selective, you're not just choosing from the same bin. You're selecting from a different distribution entirely. You're looking at many more potential setups and choosing only the exceptional ones. Here's the math, and this is where it gets really interesting. Let's say your strategy identifies 20 potential setups per week. These are setups that kind of look like your system, that sort of meet your criteria, that you could rationalize taking. If you take all 20 of them, your average setup quality on a scale of 1 to 10 is maybe a 5. Some are 7s or 8s, some are 3s or 4s. Average is 5. Mediocre. But if you wait, if you look at those 20 setups and you only take the best 5, the top 25%, your average quality isn't 6 or 7. It's 9, because you're not taking anything that's mediocre. You're only taking the exceptional ones, and this compounds. A 5 out of 10 setup with a certain edge might make you 1R on average, 1 times your risk. But a 9 out of 10 setup with the same underlying strategy might make you 3R on average, because everything about it is optimal. The timing is perfect. The volatility is ideal. The confirmation is crystal clear. The context supports it. Everything aligns. So you've waited 4 times longer. You've taken 1/4 the number of trades, but you're making 3 times the return per trade. Do the math. 4 times fewer trades, 3 times the return per trade. You're making 75% of the return with 25% of the activity. And that 75% comes with massively lower costs, massively lower attention expenditure, massively lower emotional taxation. The selection effect multiplier means that waiting doesn't cost you returns. It concentrates returns into fewer, higher quality opportunities. The second mechanism is forced error elimination. In tennis, statisticians distinguish between 2 types of errors: forced errors and unforced errors. A forced error is when your opponent hits such a great shot that you can't return it. The ball is hit so hard placed so perfectly that there's nothing you could have done. That's a forced error. It's not really your fault. Your opponent just executed brilliantly. An unforced error is when you make a mistake without pressure from your opponent. You hit the ball into the net on an easy shot. You double fault on your serve. You miss a return you should have made. These are self-inflicted wounds. You're beating yourself. Professional tennis players win matches primarily by minimizing unforced errors because forced errors are inevitable. Your opponent will hit great shots sometimes. You can't prevent that. But unforced errors are completely within your control. And the players who make fewer unforced errors win more matches. It's that simple. The game is often lost by the player who beats themselves, not won by the player who outplays their opponent. In trading, unforced errors are trades you take not because conditions are optimal, not because your system is giving you a clear signal, but because you're active. Because you want to do something, because you've been waiting and you're bored or anxious or trying to make up for a previous loss. These are forced errors in the sense that you're forcing yourself to trade when you shouldn't. You're manufacturing reasons to take action. And every trader has experienced this. You take a trade, and even as you're clicking the button, part of you knows it's not quite right. It doesn't fully meet your criteria, but you rationalize it. You tell yourself it's close enough. You tell yourself you need to take action, and those trades, those unforced errors, they destroy your returns. Here's what's critical. The frequency of unforced errors is directly proportional to your trading frequency. The more often you trade, the more trades you take that don't truly meet your criteria. Because you're filling time, you're staying busy, you're feeding the need for activity. If you're trading every day or multiple times per day, a significant percentage of those trades are unforced errors. Trades you wouldn't have taken if you were being truly selective. When you commit to waiting longer, when you radically reduce your trading frequency, unforced errors disappear mathematically. Not because you've developed better discipline, though that might happen, but because you're not taking filler trades. You're not forcing action. Every trade you take is genuinely optimal. You've waited long enough that only the truly exceptional setups get through your filter. And when you eliminate unforced errors, your win rate increases and your average return increases. Because you've removed the self-inflicted wounds that were silently destroying your performance. Think about it this way. If 20% of your trades are unforced errors that lose on average, and you eliminate those 20%, your overall returns don't increase by 20%. They increase by much more because those losing trades were also costing you emotionally, creating negative momentum, degrading your confidence, affecting subsequent trades. Eliminating unforced errors creates a cascade of improvements throughout your entire trading. The third mechanism is what I call transaction cost invisibility. Every trade has visible costs and invisible costs. The visible costs are obvious. Commissions, spreads, fees. These show up on your broker statement. You can see them. You account for them. Most traders are aware of these costs and they factor them into their strategy. But every trade also has invisible costs that are much harder to measure, but often much larger than the visible costs. Invisible costs include slippage, the difference between where you wanted to enter and where you actually entered. Market impact. If you're trading size, your order itself moves the market against you. Time spent. Every trade requires time for analysis, execution, management, and processing. That time has value. That time could be spent on higher value activities. Attention consumed. We already talked about this. Every trade depletes your cognitive resources. Emotional taxation. Every trade, win or lose, creates emotional residue that affects your state and your subsequent decisions. When you trade frequently, these invisible costs compound devastatingly. Every trade consumes time you could spend on deeper analysis or strategy refinement or rest. Every trade creates emotional residue that carries into the next trade. If you're in 5 trades simultaneously, you're managing 5 sources of emotional taxation. Every trade in a correlated market reveals your positioning to other sophisticated participants who can trade against you. These costs don't appear on your brokerage statement, but they absolutely appear in your returns. When you wait longer between trades, when you dramatically reduce your frequency, invisible costs decrease exponentially. Your time cost per trade decreases because you're more selective. You're only spending time on the absolute best opportunities. Your emotional taxation decreases because you're not constantly managing positions, not constantly processing outcomes, not constantly dealing with the emotional swings of being in the market. Your market impact decreases because you're not a constant participant revealing patterns in your trading. Other market participants don't have data on your behavior because you're not active enough to create visible patterns. This creates a massive hidden edge. Imagine 2 traders with identical strategies, identical win rates, identical risk-reward ratios. On paper, their edge is the same, but one trades 100 times per month and one trades 10 times per month. The frequent trader is paying 10 times the invisible costs, 10 times the time expenditure, 10 times the emotional taxation, 10 times the attention depletion, 10 times the market impact. Over a year, those invisible costs compound into returns that are 30, 40, even 50% different despite having identical strategy performance on paper. Waiting longer doesn't just prevent bad trades. It dramatically reduces the cost of good trades. Every trade you take costs less in every dimension when you trade less frequently. The 4th mechanism is opportunity cost reversal. Most traders think about opportunity cost completely wrong. They think if I wait and I miss this trade, I've lost the opportunity. I've paid an opportunity cost. The trade happened without me, and I could have made money on it. But that's backwards. That's not how opportunity cost actually works in trading. The real opportunity cost is taking a mediocre trade that prevents you from taking an excellent trade. Think about it. Every trade you're in locks up 3 things: capital, attention, and emotional energy. While you're in a trade, your capital is committed. You can't use it for another trade. Your attention is committed. You're monitoring this trade, managing this trade. You're not fully available to analyze other opportunities. And your emotional energy is committed. You're experiencing the emotional swings of this trade. You're invested in its outcome. And all of this means you're less available for other opportunities. If you're in a mediocre trade, a 5 out of 10 quality setup, and a premium trade appears, a 9 out of 10 setup, you're not available for it. Your capital is locked up. Your attention is occupied. Your emotional bandwidth is consumed. The opportunity cost of the mediocre trade isn't the small profit you might make on it. It's the large profit you can't make on the premium opportunity because you're already occupied. When you wait longer, when you skip marginal setups, when you let mediocre opportunities pass, you're not accumulating opportunity cost. You're avoiding it. You're keeping yourself available. Your capital is available for deployment at any moment. Your attention is available to recognize and analyze premium opportunities. Your emotional energy is available to fully commit when the right setup appears. And when that premium setup does appear, you're free to engage with it fully, with all your capital, all your attention, all your energy. The wealthy trader isn't someone who catches every opportunity. They're someone who's always available for the best opportunities because they're never occupied with lesser ones. They understand that being available is more valuable than being active. Waiting longer reverses opportunity cost from a penalty for inaction into a benefit of selectivity. The cost isn't what you miss by waiting. The cost is what you can't catch because you didn't wait. The fifth mechanism is the compounding rest principle. Performance degrades with continuous use. This is true in every domain of human performance. Athletes know this. You can't train at maximum intensity every single day. You'll get injured. You'll overtrain. You'll break down. Musicians know this. You can't practice 8 hours a day, 7 days a week without developing repetitive strain injuries, without burning out. Your body needs rest to perform at peak levels. Traders somehow think they're exempt from this, that they can trade actively, continuously, day after day, week after week, without any performance degradation. But they're not exempt. They're not special. Decision-making is a performance activity. It uses cognitive resources. It creates mental fatigue, and it degrades with continuous use without rest. Your 10th trade decision of the day is measurably worse than your first trade decision. Your 20th trade of the week is measurably worse than your second trade. Not because you're weak, not because you lack discipline, because cognitive resources deplete with use. This is neuroscience. This is biology. You can't avoid it through willpower. When you wait longer between trades, when you build space and rest into your process, you're not being lazy. You're allowing recovery that enables peak performance. The trader who takes one trade per day after 23 hours of rest is operating at peak cognitive function. Fresh, sharp, clear, full attention units. The trader who takes 10 trades per day is operating at progressively degraded function throughout the day. By the 10th trade, they're making decisions with depleted resources. And this compounds over time. The well-rested trader makes better decisions because they have full cognitive capacity. Those better decisions generate better returns. Better returns create positive emotional state. Positive emotional state improves future decision quality. It's a virtuous cycle. The exhausted trader makes degraded decisions because their cognitive resources are depleted. Those degraded decisions generate worse returns. Worse returns create negative emotional state. Negative emotional state further degrades decision quality. It's a vicious cycle. Over weeks and months, these cycles compound into completely different outcomes despite the two traders having similar strategies, similar market knowledge, similar technical skills. One is operating in a compounding upward spiral. The other is operating in a compounding downward spiral, and the difference is rest. Recovery, the space between trades. Waiting longer builds compounding rest into your process automatically. Each trade becomes a peak performance event instead of a fatigued execution. And peak performance events generate outsized returns, not just because your execution is better, because your perception is sharper, your emotional regulation is stronger, your pattern recognition is clearer, your risk assessment is more accurate. Everything improves when you're rested, and everything degrades when you're exhausted. So, how do you actually implement waiting-based wealth building? How do you transform from frequent trader to selective trader? How do you start using these mechanisms? Let me give you the specific practices that make this real and actionable. The first practice is implementing a minimum wait period. This is simple but powerful. Starting immediately, starting today, implement a minimum wait period between trades. No matter how great the next setup looks, no matter how much it calls to you, you must wait at least a certain amount of time after closing a trade before opening another one. I recommend starting with 24 hours, one full day. This means if you close a trade on Monday at 2 p.m., you cannot take another trade until Tuesday at 2 p.m. at the earliest. This single rule eliminates impulsive sequences where one trade immediately triggers another, where you close a losing trade and immediately look for a revenge trade, or you close a winning trade and immediately look for another winner to keep the momentum going. Both of these sequences are driven by emotion, not by genuine opportunity assessment. The minimum wait period forces a gap, forces rest, forces recovery, and it forces you to evaluate new setups after you've had time to emotionally process the previous trade rather than while you're still charged up from it. The second practice is creating a quality score filter. This makes selection objective instead of subjective. Create a 1 to 10 scoring system for your setups based on your actual criteria. 10 is absolutely perfect. Everything aligns. 9 is excellent, and 8 is very good. Down to 1, which is barely qualifies or doesn't really meet your standards, but you're rationalizing it. Write down your specific criteria and assign points to each one. Maybe confirmation strength is worth 3 points. Maybe context is worth 2 points. Maybe volatility is worth 2 points. Design a scoring system that reflects what actually makes a setup high quality in your strategy. For the first month, continue taking trades as you normally would, but record the quality score for every potential setup you consider and every trade you take. Track the score and the outcome. At the end of the month, analyze your data. What was your average quality score across all the trades you took? What was your return distribution by quality score? How did 8+ scored setups perform versus 5 to 7 scored setups versus below 5? You'll almost certainly discover a dramatic difference. The high-scored setups probably produced most of your profits. The medium-scored setups probably broke even or produced small profits. The low-scored setups probably produced most of your losses. Now you have empirical evidence of the selection effect in your own trading. And now you can set a minimum threshold. If 8+ scored setups averaged 3 R and 5 to 7 scored setups averaged half an R, commit to only taking 8+ setups going forward. You've just quantified the selection effect multiplier in your own data, and you can now use it systematically. The third practice is implementing an attention budget. This makes attention scarcity explicit and forces you to manage it consciously. Assign attention units to all your trading activities. Scanning for setups costs 5 units. Taking a trade costs 15 units. Managing a trade costs 10 units per day you're in it. Processing and journaling a completed trade costs 5 units. Adjust these numbers based on your actual experience, but assign concrete values. Now give yourself a daily budget. 100 units. That's what you have available. When you hit 100, you're done for the day, regardless of what opportunities appear. No exceptions. This constraint forces selectivity. You can't take 10 trades in a day because you don't have the budget for it. You have to choose carefully. You have to prioritize. And what you'll discover is that your performance on all trades improves because you stop before exhaustion. You stop while you still have cognitive resources instead of pushing through into deficit spending. The fourth practice is designating premium-only periods. 1 week per month, designate as premium-only trading. During this week, you only take setups that score 9 or 10 on your quality scale. Absolute premium only. You might take 0 trades that week. You might take 1. You might take 2 if you're lucky, but nothing below a 9 gets through. Track your emotional experience during these weeks and track your returns. Most traders discover 2 things that transform their entire approach. First, premium-only weeks are emotionally easier. Less stress, less decision fatigue, less anxiety. Because you're not constantly evaluating marginal opportunities. You're not fighting yourself about whether to take borderline setups. The decision is easy. Is it a 9 or 10? No. Then I'm not taking it, yes? Then I'm taking it. Simple. Second, premium-only weeks are more profitable. Higher return per trade, fewer losses, better overall performance, despite dramatically reduced activity. This experiential proof is what rewires your belief system. You can't argue with your own data. When you see with your own eyes that trading less generated better returns and felt better emotionally, The intellectual understanding becomes embodied understanding, and that's when sustained change becomes possible. The fifth practice is keeping a waiting rewards log. This builds conscious awareness of waiting as investment rather than waiting as sacrifice. Every time you see a potential setup and you choose not to take it because it doesn't meet your threshold, log it. Note what the setup was, what quality score it had, why you passed on it. Then note what happened. Did it trigger and win without you? Did it trigger and lose? Did it never trigger at all? And when you do take a trade, when you finally find one that meets your high standards, note how the waiting improved it. Note what made this setup better than the ones you passed on. Note how waiting for better conditions, or better confirmation, or better context made this trade higher probability. Over time, you're building a visible record that waiting longer generated better outcomes, that the setups you passed on were mostly mediocre or losing, that the setups you took after waiting were mostly winning. This psychological reframing is critical because it makes waiting feel like profitable action instead of passive inaction. You're not missing opportunities by waiting. You're investing in better opportunities. And this log proves it. Let me bring this all together. We started with a paradox. How can waiting longer make you richer faster? It seems impossible. It violates intuition. It seems like doing less should generate less results. But what we discovered is that wealth in trading doesn't come from action frequency. It comes from action quality. And quality emerges from selectivity. And selectivity requires waiting. It's not optional. It's mechanical. We uncovered 5 specific mechanisms. The selection effect multiplier that makes each trade exponentially better when you filter more rigorously. Wait 4 times longer. Take 1/4 the trades, but those trades are 3 times more profitable because you've only selected the premium opportunities. Forced error elimination that removes self-inflicted wounds. The trades you take because you're bored or impatient or trying to manufacture action, those disappear when you commit to longer waits. Transaction cost reduction, both visible and invisible. Every trade costs less in time, attention, emotion, and market impact when you trade less frequently. Opportunity cost reversal that keeps you available for the best opportunities instead of occupied with mediocre ones. And the compounding rest principle that makes each trade a peak performance event because you're operating with full cognitive resources instead of depleted ones. These aren't philosophical concepts. These aren't motivational ideas. They're mathematical realities, measurable, provable in your own trading data. When you wait longer, when you become ruthlessly selective, each trade becomes statistically stronger, emotionally cleaner, cognitively sharper, and financially more profitable. The waiting itself generates the edge. The waiting is the strategy. The traders building real wealth, the ones who achieve financial freedom through trading, they're not the busy ones. They're not the ones always in the market, always active, always trading. They're the ones who wait, who do nothing most of the time, who understand that empty time between trades isn't wasted time. It's compound interest accumulating. It's selection filters strengthening. It's attention recovering. It's opportunities qualifying themselves out or qualifying themselves in. Here's what you need to understand at the deepest level. More action does not equal more results. This is the lie that keeps most traders trapped in mediocrity. Frequency is not productivity. Activity is not progress. You've been confusing motion with momentum. You've been mistaking busyness for effectiveness. The fastest path to wealth is through the slowest execution. Waiting longer doesn't slow down your wealth building. It accelerates it by eliminating everything that was slowing you down. The forced errors, the transaction costs, the attention deficit, the mediocre opportunities. When you remove those, when you commit to radical selectivity, returns don't decrease. They explode. You're not sacrificing opportunity by waiting. You're creating it. The wait is the edge. The wait is the wealth generator. You are not lazy for trading less. You're not passive for waiting longer. You're not missing out. By being selective, you are implementing the same mathematical advantage that every sustainably wealthy trader has discovered. That quality compounds faster than quantity. That selection beats participation. That strategic inaction generates more wealth than constant action. This isn't about patience as a virtue. This is about patience as a mechanism, as a mathematical advantage that generates superior returns through multiple compounding effects. If this reframed how you think about waiting, about activity, about what creates wealth in trading, let me know in the comments. Tell me what your current trading frequency is and what you think it's costing you in invisible costs. Tell me which mechanism resonated most with you. Was it the selection effect multiplier, the forced error elimination, the attention compound interest, the opportunity cost reversal, the compounding rest? Tell me what clicked for you, because your insights help me understand what traders are struggling with and what needs deeper exploration. And if this approach to trading resonates with you, if the idea that wealth comes from selectivity and waiting rather than activity and frequency makes sense, subscribe to this channel. There's more of this kind of counterintuitive, mechanism-based trading psychology coming. More principles that flip conventional wisdom and reveal how trading actually works versus how we've been taught it works. More insights that transform your understanding from surface-level behavioral advice to deep structural understanding of what creates results. But right now, implement the minimum wait period. Pick a number: 24 hours, 48 hours, whatever feels challenging but doable, and commit to waiting that long between closing one trade and opening another. Feel how that constraint changes what you're willing to trade. Feel how it forces you to be more selective because you know that once you take a trade, you're locked out for that period. Feel how it creates rest and recovery time that you didn't have before. That's not slowing down your wealth building. That's accelerating it by eliminating the activity that was destroying returns while disguised as opportunity. The richest traders aren't the fastest. They're not the most active. They're not the busiest. They're the most patient, the most selective. The ones who discovered that wealth compounds in the spaces between trades, not during them. That waiting longer makes you richer faster, not despite the waiting, but because of it. You already have everything you need to build wealth through trading. You just need to stop interrupting the process with activity that prevents it, with forced errors and attention, depletion, and mediocre opportunities that dilute your returns. Now go wait your way to wealth. Now go trade less and make more. Now go discover that the fastest path to richness is through the slowest execution.